have you ever felt just like I'm doing all the things, but nothing's getting done? When you're in that mindset, in that mode, that is exactly what the business trap is. Because you might be working in your lab, doing all the things for the lab, writing papers for the lab, publishing in the lab, but somehow your dissertation is taking the back burner. There has to be some aspect of some community, some support system that you have to have in place, because the dissertation is a team process. I will say, done is better than perfect any day of the week. Today, we're talking blind spots, but I don't mean a flaw in your argument or a gap in the literature review. I mean a flaw in your process, the invisible habits and routines that are holding you up from getting work accomplished each day. It's the reason why you can spend 8 hours at your desk and feel like you have accomplished nothing. The problem isn't that you're working hard or even working hard enough. It's the fact that there are blind spots in your workflow that's draining your effort. So in today's episode, we're going to turn on the lights on those blind spots and help you finish that dissertation quickly. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, and I'm the host of ABD the PhD Show and founder of Done Dissertation, where our goal is to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation in record time. Today's episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program, which has the goal to help you write your dissertation and defend now, because we want to see folks who have their doctorates in hand that can impact organizations and communities and individuals they care most about. So if that is you and you need support to the finish line, you can go to our sponsor, the Velocity Coaching Program, and learn more about our program and get the support that you need by going to www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan a QR code that is right here on your screen. And feel free to pause if you need to go ahead and scan the QR code. The application will take you 3 to 5 minutes to complete. Now, let's get into today's episode, because y'all, I like talking about this. This is something, and shout out to Renee for coming up with this episode and writing this, because this is something that is so clutch when we're thinking about our process. A lot of times we don't consider that we do have blind spots as doctoral students that can impact our flow and our delivery of how we get things done. And so because of that, I want to talk about 3 of them in particular that I see holding a lot of students up. So I want to bring up my board so we can kind of talk through what I'm currently seeing in terms of the 3 blind spots. And so the first of 3 blind spots, and we'll use some red for today, is the time blind spot. And as you could imagine, right, you're probably thinking about, well, what does that have to do with me in terms of time? Y'all, time is one of the number one things that we see doctoral students, waste as a part of this process. And when we say time, the time blind spot, what I'm more so referring to is what I would describe as the busyness trap. And so have you ever felt just like I'm doing all the things, but nothing's getting done? When you're in that mindset, in that mode, that is exactly what the busyness trap is. Because, you might be working in your lab, doing all the things for the lab, writing papers for the lab, publishing in the lab, but somehow your dissertation is taking the back burner. And sometimes where the busyness trap can feel like is that this belief that, the fact that you can spend hours on your work and that equals progress. And I'm here to tell you right now, time certainly does not equal progress. Because if that was the case, I would just say spend 24 hours a day on your dissertation if we knew that equaled each other. So just know that the more time that you spend on something does not mean the progress is being made. And I hear this a lot of times with doctoral students when they say, oh my God, I spent so much time on writing that chapter only for my professor to carve it up. So just because you spent a lot of time on something does not equate to it being where it needs to be. And just to give an example, think about the Olympics, for instance, right? These are the top of the top athletes in the world who are trained their whole lives for the Olympics. But somehow when we get to Olympic races and things like that, there's someone that comes in last place. The time that they spent in their craft did not necessarily equal to the outcome. So just know that time doesn't always equal to the outcome. And so how you leverage your time becomes more important than the amount of time that you are spending, because it's nothing worse than at the end of the day. And I see this with writing in particular, that you said, all right, today I'm going to spend 45 minutes on my writing. And then the first thing you do when you sit down to write is you reread everything you wrote yesterday. And then what you do is you spend 30 minutes doing all that rereading. And then you look up, you have 15 minutes left to write, and you may have gotten maybe a paragraph done. And then you're down on yourself and all of these things. But you just see right there how the busyness in that example of just doing editing work It's keeping you away from the actual business that you need to be doing with producing the actual product with your writing. So this is something that I want you to think about, and it's really important because a lot of us will waste a lot of time. And I would say time is our most important asset that we don't have a insurmountable amount of, or not even insurmountable, but we don't have an infinite amount of time. Time is finite. And so we want to spend and leverage our time in the best ways possible. But that is indeed a blind spot that we see from a lot of students is around time. If this is resonating with you, let me know in the comments. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and notification bell. If you're watching on LinkedIn, make sure you follow me on LinkedIn so you get more content and learn when the new stuff comes out. Now, we get time under the way. The second blind spot that I see a lot of doctoral students having is around the writing, and it's actually a writing blind spot. And what the writing blind spot looks like is that, your writing time must equal 4-hour blocks. And you can replace the 4-hour with any time, X hours. It doesn't matter what it is. I see it quite often. And it's okay. But I think a lot of times we think about, I need to have this perfect time frame of writing in order to get things done. And even in my book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, I promoted in one of the chapters around daily writing. And I'm still a firm believer on daily writing. However, we have to figure out, what does consistency look like for you at this point of time for you in your life? Because I just had a post that I posted on LinkedIn that a lot of folks seem to really enjoy around thinking about consistency in a task. Consistency can look different for different people. So for you, consistency might be, 1 day a week for 4 hours. But here's where the only downfall is with that approach. Let's say, for instance, that you are going to write for 4 hours 1 day a week. Let's say Sunday is your day. Let's say, for instance, you catch a cold and you're just not feeling it on that Sunday. Let's say, for instance, your favorite team is playing and you want to watch the game. Let's say, for instance, there's an activity, a family function that you must go to on that Sunday. Now that has drastically interrupted the only time frame that you had during your week to write. This is why I'm not necessarily saying that binge writing does not work, because it certainly does for people. Like, I'm not saying that. But more often than not, if we don't have more of a higher cadence, a repetition of writing and actually sitting down and do the work, sometimes you can, be at a disadvantage. Because let's take your 4-hour block, for instance, where you're writing and, it gets interrupted. Let's say you really are sitting down for 2 hours, but let's say my writing block looks like, hey, I'm going to do, 1 hour a day, 4 days a week. So we have the same time frame, but maybe I'm able to have more focus and my writing doesn't get interrupted as much. And so let's say 15 minutes get shaved off of each writing session. So now what have I lost? Only 1 hour. So I'm at 3 hours where you may have only gotten an hour and a half worth of work done. So you really got to really think about, what does that cadence need to look like for you in the season of life that you're in. When I was a doctoral student, my writing happened in the morning because I just didn't have the bandwidth in the afternoon. As a faculty member, because sometimes I have meetings and things in the morning, my writing cadence, and especially during COVID, when my daughter was home from daycare, she was like a year and a half at the time, my writing cadence became at night when she went to bed. So my writing cadence, and there's pictures I wish I had in the show, in like a B-roll or something. Renee and I sitting at a table at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night doing our work, because that was the only time we had that was quiet and we didn't have a little one running around that we're chasing. So, you have to really think about, what does this look like for you at this point in time? But the writing is a blind spot in your process that I see a lot of folks have. And one of the other things around writing is your mindset around what should be accomplished during writing. And this is why it's a blind spot, because a lot of times you may feel like in your mind is that I need to produce this writing that is magical, right? As Dr. Varela, one of our coaches in our velocity program, would say, you feel like you had to be Jay-Z and kind of just, take the mic and drop the mic, right? You drop the mic. That's not how this process goes. You are going to have terrible drafts. Just go ahead and just it's okay. I call mine the sloppy first draft. I'm cool with it. But my goal as a writer is, and this is how I've been very productive in terms of like research productivity, is like, my goal is to get the sloppiest rough draft as quickly as I can. Because I know from there, once I have a full draft, I'm just editing and refining, and I can go through and clean things up. But if I'm still toying around with the ideas in my head and I don't have it down on the paper, there's nothing anyone can do to help me. So what you're going to have to recognize is that in this writing, perfectionism becomes a blind spot for you when we think about writing. And because of that, you're going to have to let go of perfectionism. I will say, done is better than perfect any day of the week, to be quite honest with you, especially with a dissertation. Because here's the thing, you can have something that you deem as perfect, but as soon as you submit it to your chair and committee, they're going to find something to carve up with it. I don't care how good your writing is. Academics are trained to find something in the work that could be enhanced. Just know that's what's going to happen to you. So don't get consumed with it being perfect. You need to have it done because, again, let's say you got a perfect dissertation, but it took you 3 years. But let's say me, I got a done dissertation that took me 1. Now we're in the field. I'm 2 years ahead of you in the field. I'm 2 years ahead of you on salary. All these things because you wanted something that was perfect, and because there's ramifications for perfect. And just know that those are some of them that I'm just giving you as an example. But this is really important in what I think about the writing. So remember, we don't need perfect. Done is better. And actually, we'll do. Just think done is always greater than perfect, or perfect in this case less than done. It's really important. It's something to consider. Now, for our last one, again, if this is resonating with you, just let me know in the chat, in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. LinkedIn, Facebook, make sure you follow us on those platforms. Now, the last one, the last blind spot that you have is the isolation blind spot. This is what I would refer to as you doing the solo genius myth. And so what I mean by the solo genius myth is that this is a belief that you have to suffer alone and solve every single problem around your dissertation yourself. Because you got into this mindset where people have told you, like, oh, the dissertation has to be a solo process. It is a way to show your expertise, which is true. But research is indeed a conversational activity. So you have to ask yourself, and this is something to consider, right? Who other than your advisor right now has heard you talk about your ideas or your struggles with your dissertation? There has to be some aspect of some community, some support system that you have to have in place because the dissertation is a team process. I say that all the time. And this is why we created the Velocity Coaching Program, to have a group environment where folks can bounce ideas off of each other and support one another. Even last night on a call, we had some new folks join, and one person was just joining, was like, oh my God, it's so great to hear where X client is right now because it gives me hope that I can get there. And I'm recognizing that the questions I have are not silly questions because this person actually had to think through that in order to execute their study. Like, having the team is really important. That's why our environment and Velocity is so dope, because we have such great scholars who are doing such innovative work in one community. It's no need, no competition. It's everyone striving to be successful and great with their own work and helping another person do it. And so having that environment, having that support will help you get through the isolation block, because there's nothing worse than trying to do this yourself. And again, so the dissertation is a team sport. So please do remember that. You cannot get this done necessarily just by yourself trying to do all of the things. You need people. And this is why, as part of our philosophy at Done Dissertation, we call it the 3 Ps. The people in the 3P formula, having the right people in place, plus understanding the process, will equal a great product. But many of us are always focused on the third, the product, the end result, but we're not thinking about the people we need, which includes people to bounce ideas off of, and we're not thinking about the process. Our process around writing, our process around working with our committee, all of these things start to become very important. And this is why in our Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program, we help students get to the finish line by having that infrastructure and by having that support, in order to know, like, I'm not crazy when I'm in these programs and I see myself struggling. Like, no, it's quite common, but I have a proven strategy in order to do so by working with Done Dissertation. And so with that said, I hope this episode was helpful. Make sure you share this out with folks that could be, get support. And if you're someone who's like, look, I need support, I need you all to be like deep dive in my dissertation, help me sift through the feedback I'm getting, like be hands-on with me, then go ahead and, apply to work with us in our Velocity Coaching Program. You can learn more about what we do at www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code that is here on your screen. Again, I want to see you all getting these dissertations done, not being stuck in ABD, because there are so many individuals, organizations, and communities that can benefit from your research, that I want you to get these things done. And so if that is you want to get done, make sure you tap in with us. and learn more in our Velocity Coaching Program. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and share this with a colleague. There's someone that could benefit from this information. So make sure that you share these videos. And I see the shares continuously to rise each week. And so I want to say thank you so much for sharing these videos with colleagues who could get support. But with that said, until next time, I wish you all a done dissertation. Take care, and we'll talk soon.